Hey everybody, welcome back inside the stash. So yeah, we haven't done one of these videos for a little while, mainly because anybody who's been following the channel knows that I have been out of work for a little while of my own volition. To give a history for the people who don't watch, I left a job mainly because I thought I had another job lined up, and that job never ended up coming through, and then it's a fiasco after that, basically because of trying to fit work into my uh, family schedule with kids and stuff like that. But managed to get something going back up here recently, and actually a few of these things are just recent pickups because we just had our show here. Our club, the South Hills Modeling Association, had its show last weekend. It was an actual all-show weekend here in Pittsburgh. The IPMS Club had their show the day before up on the north side of town, and then our show is on the south side of downtown Pittsburgh. I did not go to the IPMS show because, as anybody who watches the channel knows, we haven't got anything done. So it's kind of pointless to go to a show that is a contest and not display anything. Our show that we do, the club members obviously do not display the show, so obviously it was irrelevant whether or not I had built anything for our show. Plus, I run the PA, do the mic work, so to speak, and also just help in the back of the contest in general. Getting everybody situated and things like that. I'd have to say this year we probably let a few things slide in terms of the what went where and what classes. Personally, had it been up to my druthers, I probably could have moved half of the people's stuff into better categories, but being that it's a people's choice category, we just sort of let people, put their stuff where they felt it was appropriate. This, of course, led to at least one group of people kvetching, which is not a surprise. These people kvetched the last show we had, which was 2 years ago. Last year we took a year off because our venue was getting a new roof and we couldn't line up anything else to put it in on short notice. So we skipped a year, and I was expecting the kvetching. I had heard from people who had gone to the show on Saturday, and this is our first show of the season around here, that they were kvetching up there at that show, basically about something that happened 2 years ago, where the person actually ended up winning the class, but was unhappy about what was in the class with them. They were up there apparently talking about how our show judging is rigged, which is, to me, one of the most hysterical things you could possibly ever say about our show, being that it is, again, a People's Choice show. Now, we do, as club members, sponsor individual awards. My award this year was Best Import. We had like Best Pontiac, Best Engine, Best Paint, all those sort of things like that. But they're individually sponsored by the club members, which means that, aside from Best of Show, which is still a little subjective more than it is judged, all of those Best of awards given out by club members are subjective to the, to our personal tastes. One probably could argue that there was a different Best Import there in terms of what won classes, but in my subjective opinion of what I was looking for in an import car, that build wasn't exactly what I was looking for, so I gave it to the next best thing in terms of what I was looking for. It was the best thing for what I was looking for, I guess that'd be the best way to phrase that. It's a sad state where grown men have to act like babies. It's not a surprise because these grown men have acted like babies for the last 3 or 4 years that I've been around them. They have a little fake model club here in town, meaning that they don't have any, they don't have meetings, they don't have a venue, they don't do anything other than have a bunch of matching hats and t-shirts and wander around acting like a little goon squad. Again, if you want to badmouth the show, don't come. That's how I look at it. I've grown tired. It was one thing when they acted a little, rough around the edges in terms of their, personal opinions being loudly stated. Sometimes you just keep stuff to yourself unless you have a YouTube channel. And then they, like I said, really acted a fool 2 years ago, and then proceeded to continue to act a fool. And it's like, even if they had lost, I could understand why they would be upset, but they won. Or at least the loudest complainer won. And so I don't understand how you could be a sore winner for 2 years. I mean, you won, and you're still complaining about it. I don't understand. So be that as it may, it was a decent show overall. Attendance, like people in the building, I think was probably on par, if not a little higher than it was 2 years ago. It's kind of hard to tell without knowing what the gate was, which we haven't figured out. Well, I'm sure it's been figured out since then, but I didn't know the last time I talked to the guys in the club. Entries on the tables were probably down about a quarter, maybe a third compared to where they were the last time. And because the last time we actually had to like go grab tables out of the back and add tables to the contest area as we were running the contest. This year, certain categories were empty. Anybody who's watched Hunter Selby over at Showtime Studios knows he took home a good portion of the plastic hardware that was given out. Kudos to him for having great stuff in the first place. But a couple of things, and Hunter told you in the video, were default awards like heavy commercial. He was the only one in it. He won for our military category, which had 2 things in it. It was good to see that our theme this show was Crazy Eights, which was any car built in a year that ended in an 8. 2018, 2008, 1998, 1978, so on and so forth. Probably could have been more things that were entered in that category. People were a little more, I guess, liberal in their interpretation. The thing that I gave away best import could have been put into that category, for example. It was all people. And people took it very, very literally in the sense of like what the box said. There were several things like Mitsubishi Evos and a couple of different other import style kits where the car was made through a plateau of going through a 2008 or a 1998 or whatever, where they could have put it in and just called it a 1998 and you literally would not know the difference, but because there were no genuine changes from the time the kit was manufactured into that year. So that would have stripped out a bunch of stuff from other classes, so I guess it's all, for naught. Although, like I said, it was good to see that the theme was entered this year. We've had, the last 2 themes, maybe the last 3 themes, where there have been very, very little crowd participation, in the sense of like having 1 entry. We had a rat rod class this year, which had 1 entry, which was weird because, I thought rat rods were a thing, but maybe that thing is over or dying down now. But again, we didn't have a show last year, so maybe people didn't realize we're gonna have a show this year. There were some people who were like, "Well, I didn't find out about this till yesterday," and it was okay. We've had flyers out for 6 months, and advertised everywhere. It was on the calendar at Model Cars Magazine and everything. I don't know how you didn't know it was coming out, but be that as it may. But like I said, overall, I had a good time. I think most people had a good time, and we'll be back again March 31st next year. Already got the place booked up, so there. Now for almost. Well, actually, I'm filming this on the 31st, so you have a whole year. There's no club theme as of yet. We haven't had a meeting. I don't even think it'll be determined. Next meeting will probably be May, June before we get around to it, because it'll be. Anybody have an idea for a theme? No. We'll think of something and come back next month. That's the way it usually goes. But, I guess that's pretty much it on that. So we'll take a look at, like I said, a few things that have crossed the transom here in the last couple of weeks. I guess this is sort of a goofy thing to start with, but it was something that turned out I needed and didn't realize I needed. I was working on one of the GT3 cars. Detail painting the steering wheel, and anybody's done a GT3 car knows that there's a whole bunch of little toggle switches that need to be painted a bunch of different colors, and it turned out that 3 of them on this car need to be painted violet, which is, of course, purple, basically. And I don't have any purple. Why would I have any purple? It's not a color that I'd be painting many things. I probably do need it for one of these other colors. Hopefully this is more or less the right color for that. I'm pretty sure this is the acrylic version of the lacquer paint that they offer. If not, I'll just go get some of the lacquer paint. But I got a little itty bitty bottle of Tamiya X16. It's a tiny bottle. Usually, you guys who watch me do like live stream stuff like that know that I usually get the great big bottles, but it's purple. What am I going to use this on? I'll probably be dead and gone, and my kids will be dead before anybody would ever use this whole container. And then I was talking to a few different people, looking at a few different things online in terms of panel liners. Because what I've noticed from people who are using, well, really anything, but especially Tamiya panel liner, because it's an enamel panel liner, so it's a little thicker and more stark than, say, there's black panel liner from Testers in the Acryl line, and there's also Detail Master. I think it's Detail Master that I have. I'm trying to think what this stuff is. The Detailer. This stuff, this black wash stuff here. Yeah, this is also an acrylic. They tend to be a little lighter. The Tamiya panel liner is quite stark, especially if you apply it like a couple of times on a white body. And right now what I'm looking at here is I'm using probably like 1, 2, 3 different things that need to be painted white, and I didn't want that like, whoa, it's a Gundam marker die-cast panel line. So I went out and additionally, I have the black stuff already, picked up the gray panel liner, which of course, there we go. And then they also have a light gray panel liner. I'm thinking this is probably good for doing underlying work on a gray, a light gray, obviously, but any kind of light, interior. So you're going to do like a white interior to do pre-shading with. Is it because it's an enamel and most everything else I use is acrylic? You can put acrylic over enamel without any issues. This will probably, I'm going to put this actually. This ends up looking basically, when it's shook up, it looks like it's basically like the color of primer. Put this on white bodies to get a less holy moly punch in the face kind of panel line. This will also be good dark gray, be under regular gray interiors. And then because those are enamel, and because I'm a sucker for using paint systems, basically not crossing streams as it were, I got a thing of this is kind of hard to find because they don't really sell it here in the United States, is the X20 thinner. This is the enamel paint thinner. X20A is the stuff that you use to thin the acrylic line with. You guys just see this was smuggled into the country out of Japan, 55 yen. So it's about it's $5.50 basically. Or actually it's 550 yen, but still basically $5. It does have English instructions on it, but it does not have the California labeling, which, if we put this up here again, I don't know if it'll focus on that. You see it's distributed by Tamiya USA out of California, and it has all the cancer warnings that, please don't drink this, you're going to die. This stuff is strictly in Japanese, and it's manufactured in Japan. So, like I said, you go on eBay, you can find it. This was in country. I didn't have to go out of country for it. But obviously this is not a legit importation of it. That's just basically the way the panel liners were before the switch over into the new labeling system. They brought them over here in the United States. The same thing with the acrylic retarders were the same way, where you couldn't get it here in the United States directly. You had to go through a third person, or I should say a third party. So there's that. Like I said, I picked up a couple things at the show, and there was a couple other things that I grabbed here recently because some guy was fire sailing a bunch of out-of-production Tamiya race cars. I picked this up, and now because I bought this, I'm sure Round 2 will reissue it. It's not on the reissue slate yet, but I'm sure that it will. And that is one of the AMT Chevy Bison. I'm pretty sure this is an original. Actually, it's not original because it's a Dyersville thing. So this is a reissue that AMT did sometime in the 1980s. They reissued it again sometime in the 1990s, and it has a twin or a cousin, sister, whatever you look at it. It's a GMC General. The GMC General was reissued what, mid-1990s, late 1990s, right before Racing Champions bought the company. So the tooling for this still exists, because the difference between the GMC and the Chevy is the grill, basically, and the the Bison versus General logos on the hood. So, like I said, I'm sure now that I've paid more than market value. Well, I paid less than market value, I should say, but more than a new kit could cost. I'm sure they'll. Oh, hey, look what the tooling we found. Back in the older days, we had $10.97 at Hills. Anybody remember Hills? Good times, good times. And then one of our, I don't think he's not really technically a member of our club, but he's related to somebody in our club, and he was selling a bunch of his model stuff off to pay for some 1-1 car work. So I picked up, this is an original, 1999, I think is when this kit was tooled up. I don't know why I just suddenly decided to buy a bunch of trucks, but I've been eyeballing the reissue of this, which is selling locally for like 60. And like I said, he wanted to get rid of stuff more than he wanted to keep it, so this was substantially less. Although I don't know what you do with these decals. And legit, it's the Italy Western Star. Yeah. What can you say about those decals, right? A couple people have asked me if I'm going to use them. No. Basically, aside from the fact that it's tacky as all get out, this whole thing is one great big piece of decal underneath the stacks, underneath the hood straps, the hood opening. Basically, I tell you to stick this decal on there, in one piece, effectively, with just the cab built without the hood. It's Italians, but yeah, I don't know what their deal is with the wild decals that they put in our U.S. truck kits. But be that as it may, this Western Star Constellation was one of the things that I'd been looking for a while, sort of poking around at it. It's a full detail kit, although I don't know if this is actually legit in the sense of the contents, because Western Star was really good about recycling their chassis and running their drivetrain, the running gear, out of older kits. So whether or not this is legit a Western Star chassis and a legit an engine that was available in Western Star, I don't know. Don't care. And yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, I for what it cost, I couldn't pass it up, especially compared to what the new one cost. And then this was that was molded in light blue. I kind of like the light blue. Might leave it something similar to that color. Got to paint it, obviously, but the new is molded in red. And while I'm not a believer in the whole, oh my god, you can't paint red plastic thing, I just would assume, give myself more options. Like I said, I have a whole bunch of trucks. You guys know if you've watched this channel and have paid attention. And I kind of want to make a sort of a unified fleet. So I was going to go with black for a lot of it, but I really like this blue, and I'm a sucker for blue in the first place, so I don't know. If you just heard that, that's my 16-year-old screaming at the dog. I'm sure it did something terrible. And then, like I said, I got these kits back here that are all out of production Tommy race cars. And a couple of these you'll recognize because I've been talking about the carbon fiber sets that have been coming out for them. This guy was up in Oregon, so somehow I managed to get a Canadian Tamiya kit. Who knows why? But this is of course, the Le Mans winning Jaguar XJR9 Le Moon. I'm trying to think what year this was that this ran. Like it's 1988, I believe. Yeah, right, because 1989 would have been the Sauber. So I got this. The decals look like they're pretty decent shape, although the silk cut logos could probably be better. There are a couple different replacement decal sheets for this, so I might go ahead and pick one up just to have the wording. All the rest of it looks good. These were all factory sealed. I've opened them to inspect them and look at the decals and stuff like that. So it's probably passable, but there's like I said, a couple of the decals for the tobacco liveries are not quite where I want them to be as far as the logos go. This is one of those situations where this car does have to have the silk cut logos because it is prior to the tobacco ban that Le Mans did, or France did, in motorsports in general, but obviously it affected the 24 Hours of Le Mans more than it affected other things. Then I picked this up, which is the second of these. I have the black car, the Blancpain car. I'm not sure it's actually technically Blancpain, but it's got watches on the front of it. This is the original Telly or Teal, I guess, version that has the engine ripping out of the car. These decals are mint. Like, they look probably better than they did when they came out of the factory. Like I said, the second one of these, I want to pick up the D2 one if I could find one with a decent set of decals. Basically because I think Shunko did replacement sheets for these in the past, but they're near and dear expensive because they've been out of production probably since 2002, 2003. So it'd be a whole question whether or not they're any good at or not. And then I grabbed a whole bunch of these three at one time, mainly because I figured if Studio 27 was to continue with their Le Mans carbon fiber craze, these would be the next kits that they're going to do after, next, or perhaps next month, we'll see. One up is the Cabin, you evil tobacco, sponsored R90V. Now, this is like a mildly tweaked version of the R89C. It's missing a set of headlights up front, and I'd have to really sit down and compare parts. But basically, the car ran Le Mans, and then it was retired, air quotes, into running the Japanese sports car prototype series. It didn't do very particularly good in that either. I'd have to look up the specifics to see where it finished, but I know from just glancing at the season results, it didn't win any races or anything else like that, and it wasn't in the top 5 in points. But carbon fiber for the R89C should fit this as well, since I think the kits are pretty much identical. I think you're just literally taking a piece of the headlight off, and beyond that, I think the kits, like I said, are piece for piece identical to one another. The cabin wording in here is kind of sketchy. They provide the decals for the white part of the roof and the surround here, and every single decal set that I've seen since then, not only does it not include this, but these little arrows that are on here, they tend to leave the big red chunks as being clear, and there's a big decal that's supposed to go on the top. Look, there it is here, and they're just basically leaving those red parts clear, which would mean you'd have to like two-tone an arrow onto the roof, and I would prefer not to do that. So I'm hoping I can at least use the arrow, but the wording is kind of, dingy. And again, it's a 1990 original kit. Picked up the R89C. Other than, really, the complaints I have on the decals here are the Calsonic, because it's on a white background, and then one Nissan for the spoiler, if I can figure out where I'm pointing at, are kind of a little yellow. But other than that, the decal sheet in this is remarkably good condition for being, older. And like I said, I think this, if I had to pick, it'll either be this or it'll be the 956 to get carbon fiber next, if they're going to keep doing that, because at this point there are no other. I think there's one Toyota left. I think it's the 89Q. The 88Q. There's one Toyota Le Mans Endurance Group C car that hasn't, and it's like the 962 that Tommy did, where it has no engine, and it's like sort of a former motorized toy kind of thing. And then there's one that has a full detail engine. I want to say it's the Tom's one, which is an 88 Q, I think, that has the engine in it. But if we're going to go with it, there's only, like I said, 3 engine kits left, that Toyota, this Nissan, and the 956. And I have a 956, so go ahead and release that. And I have one of these, so go ahead and release that too. I don't, just basically trying to buy ahead, because those kits are, like I said, expensive and out of production. And like I said, I paid like around $20 a piece for these. And nobody was bidding against me, which is the odd thing, because these are like, usually if you go on eBay, these are like $50+ kits, and they were not this week. So, and the last one I picked up is the Sauber Mercedes C9. Obviously, this is a carbon fiber decal set that they just did this month, so we had to pick this up. I really would. There's a replacement set for this too that I may grab, mainly because the little door shields, are supposed to have a white background, and the backgrounds are yellowed. For some reason, the wording for the wing is fine, but those squares are not quite where I'd like them to be in terms of the, being white. And they're, blatantly white on the car. So you can build, I think, 3 different cars out of this: 61, 62, and 63, I think. So it's like, you know, this is the 1989 Le Mans winner, and I know that it finished 1, 2, so you build the first place, second place, and then I'm not sure where the third car finished. But if you start looking at like even the drawing here, you start picking out where there's, you know, carbon fiber on these. I don't know if there's, what I call them, shock towers or strut towers, and then there's carbon fiber on the engine here, and you know, you start looking at the drawing. Oh, there's a lot of carbon fiber on this car, and this, you know, kit, when it was done back in what, 1990. All these kits were done in 1990. You know, nobody thought about doing any sort of carbon fiber for them, so they're getting sort of a little, I don't know, additional lease on life, as it were, out of the Studio 27 guys here. So it'd be great if they would. Well, it doesn't matter if they reissue them now or not, because I already bought them. But you know, for other people, it might be nice if they would actually reissue those kits. And you know, now that there's decal sets for them, and the photo etch is obviously being rerun, like we talked about. So anyway, that covers it. Just a couple of things that floated in magically over the last couple of weeks, or actually the last month, since I started getting some income back in, got the bills caught back up again, and have a little bit of play money to deal with. So anyway, guys, that's it. I'm on an 8-day straight stretch, so I'm going to bed. See you guys on the other side.